Good morning, and welcome to the International Mastermind Association show as we talk about Think and Grow Rich. My name is Galen Bingham. I am the leadership strategist, and I am one of the co hosts. And every week we come together and we talk about some element of the Think and Grow Rich process by Napoleon Hill. But once a month, we get together as a masterclass, just the co-hosts, and we talk about our key learnings, our key inspirations from each of those chapters. This show is about imagination and how do you leverage imagination as part of this 13-step process that Napoleon Hill has laid out. And this is going to be an amazing show. And I can tell you that with confidence because the pre-show conversation has been amazing. And, we frequently said, okay, we got to save that. We got to save that. They need to hear this. So let's go ahead and get into this. And I want to start by bringing in my co-hosts. I'm going to start with Dr. Peter James. And I'll tell you, Dr. Peter, this has been an interesting conversation already. And it was everything that we had to hold the energy and the excitement until we could hit record and actually launch the show. Tell everyone a little bit about you and why you are so excited about this conversation we're about to have.
Good morning to you, Galen. My name is Dr. Peter A. James, the high performance coach, helping you to shift your mindset. Galen, if the pre-show is any notice to everybody, this is going to be a fabulous show about imagination, but also about the possibilities, your possibilities as you're sitting here watching it. And Napoleon Hill says in his book, the only limitation that you have in your life is what you have set up in your own mind. I can't stress that enough. We can't stress that enough. And so now, if you can eliminate that, the possibilities are endless. But that mindset is so critical. And Galen, we're going to dive into that today. We're going to dive into people's imaginations. Let's have a deep dive conversation into what that looks like for us, and that what that might look like for our audience as well.
Fantastic. We were talking about Think and Grow Rich is in general, but we were also talking about the way we get together and the International Mastermind Association itself, and how can we apply these principles to the association. And the leader, the master builder, Miss Ann McNeil, really kind of sparked this conversation earlier this week when we started talking about how can we apply these principles to this association itself. And imagination seems to be the perfect principle to leverage and to reveal part of that conversation, because we're starting to think about how do we think of ourselves, how do we think of this association as the product that you might leverage to create value for its clients, that you've got to market, that you've got to promote, that you've got to finance, that you've got to do all the things that you do for a business. How do we start turning some of those principles inward? And Ms. Ann, I'd love for that to be part of this conversation, which you sparked, because this is your brainchild. So come on into this conversation. Share with everyone a little bit as to who you are, if they don't know already, and why this is such an important conversation for them to pay attention to.
Well, Galen, thank you so very much. Again, Ann McNeil, and I am the Master Wealth Builder, helping you, yes, you, to build a stronger and better business and life, using these principles and this philosophy of success espoused by Napoleon Hill through this book, Think and Grow Rich. And as the owner of 5 businesses, picked this book up in 1979, yes, December 31st, 9 p.m., and my life and my business has never been the same. But the power of the imaginative forces that we have used over these many years has allowed us to create and creating an organization called the International Mastermind Association, that's Masterminders with an S, Association, as a place of accountability. And Galen, like we talked before, for me, that all came up in my imagination while journaling, because I desire to have a place. And I'd like to start this conversation off with all of you as you listen. Think about this. Where can you go with your family, your coworkers, and friends? Can you think of a place you can go to be held accountable as a group for every single area of your life, which includes your business? Think about it. See, oftentimes we go to one place for one thing. For example, we go for, if your spiritual life, you go to church or wherever you worship. If you do that, that's okay. For your family, you may just have a family conversation, but where's accountability? For your finances, oftentimes we don't really have a particular place to go for accountability. For your health, you may go to a doctor or two, but where's the accountability on you to ensure that you do go? Yes, think about that. For your educational area, if it's your pursuit for a degree or an additional area of education, where do you go for accountability to ensure that if you're going to read that one book a year or that one book a month? Where's the accountability? Where's that place? How about your personal growth and development? Yes, personal growth. Do you aspire to write well? Where's the class? Do you aspire to become a speaker? Do you become to grow in character, integrity? Where do you go for accountability? What about your business or businesses? Where's that place of accountability? You hadn't thought about it? Well, think about that. What about your recreational area of your life? Where do you go? How about civically? Is there a particular place that you go for civic involvement? Maybe your community? Maybe you give, maybe you serve. Who's holding you accountable? How about creativity? Are you planning on writing a book or doing art or singing or whatever it is that's creative for you? And you thought about it, but you hadn't really taken that step. Where do you go for that accountability? That's what this conversation is about today. The International Mastermind Association is becoming a place for your group to be held accountable. And so for me, using the power of imagination, I created a process of journaling called my Daily Date with Myself, which is a journal book that I use. And many years ago, this idea came up while reading The Creative Imagination and Synthetic Imagination. And I realized I'm involved in over 50 different organizations. Why not create a place where I can go? Oh, yes, and I can invite my friends to come too, and my mastermind associates to come and be held accountable on an annual, biannual, monthly, weekly, and sometimes daily basis. That's what this discussion is about today. A place of accountability, but also how do you use your imagination, whether it's creative or synthetic, to create what's most important for you. So Galen, that's the backstory for me. And as I just encourage all of us, in the words of Napoleon Hill, to just remember that you're only limited if you keep in mind that your creative faculty becomes more alert if you use it. So you're only limited by the use of your own brain and how you use your imagination. When your brain or your spirit or your inspiration gives you ideas, what do you do with those ideas? So that's what this program today is about. As we drill down as a part of our masterclass, as we begin to have a conversation with each other, we would like for you to participate in this conversation. Let us hear from you in the chat, and thank all of you that have already joined in. We really appreciate you participating with us today, but be a part of the conversation and let us hear from you in the chat.
Yeah, so there are a couple of different ways for you to be a part of this conversation, and we've already got Aaliyah who's chiming in with just some morning greetings. She's ready for an incredible conversation. Laverne Dorsey is always here, it seems, and she's ready to get it going. We've got I see Tashina.
Tashana.
Yeah, boy, we got a lot of people already chiming in. So I'm going to encourage you guys. Let's take a moment and tag at least 2 or 3 people that you know need to be part of this conversation, because this is going to be an area that I don't know that you've seen us get into before. Because we're actually going to have a conversation around how do you use this? How do you use these principles? It's one thing to learn in order to know. It's another thing to learn in order to use. And that's what we're wanting here. We don't want you to just find this interesting. We actually want you to apply this to your life. And, Dr. Peter, I know you and I have talked about how this is a complete system. Any one of these topics by themselves, any one of these principles by themselves would make for a great book by itself. But Napoleon Hill has brought this in as part of a complete system. I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about what that system is and how does it work together.
Yeah, and I think before we go into our deep dive, Galen, let's take a step back and look at it from a breadth perspective. And this video that we're getting ready to watch here allows us to be able to see the big picture of this text, right? And then after this video, let's go deeper. Let's go a little bit deeper. So let's cue it up and take a listen.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the MasterMind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the Wild Wild West days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us. Use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Again, the big picture of what this text is all about. But now, Galen and Ann, I'm ready to dive in. I'm ready to use a little bit of our synthetic imagination, what we know, our theories, our concepts, and now apply it to our creative imagination as we move forward in order to benefit the International Mastermind Association, but also our audience and our participants who are on the call today. So what does that look like and how do we get started, Ann McNeil?
Well, for me, I can only just speak for myself in terms
Sure.
of how I started the journey in with the book and taking the 6 steps. And if each of you that's listening to us today, think about this, everything starts with an idea. But Napoleon Hill's ideas started with the 6 steps. And so if you think about first, how much money do you want? Then you think about, and I'll use myself as an example. How did I use the creative and synthetic imagination over a long period of time? Let me say this, because I don't want any of us thinking that, oh, got it, it's going to happen. And going back to Galen's point, this is one of the things we talked about before the show started. And we're going to unveil, I don't have a problem in going there. Yes, we're going to talk about Napoleon Hill. We're going to talk about Clement Stone. We're going to talk about this philosophy. And we're going to talk about what does it mean to you and how do you use it? I'll start with myself. So when I read the book, December 31st, 1979, that night, New Year's Eve, and I said, the answer to question number 1 was, how much money do I want? I said $1,000. Question number 2, the author asked me, well, Ann McNeil, what are you going to do to make the money? I said, wrong answer. I said I'd save it. Question number 3 asked me about what date. I said December 31st, 1980, which was a year into the future. And by the time I got to question number 4, when he asked me to give him a plan of action, exactly how I was going to make that money, I went through, I make this much, I spend this much, I got a negative number. I said, that cannot be right. So I took out a sheet of paper, I make this much, I spend this much, that negative number was bigger. I refused. Y'all know we play those games. I don't know about y'all, but I used to play those games, right? I said, this cannot be right. Denial. And so I took out a calculator and I did the math. That negative number was bigger because I left out some stuff that I owed. Okay, now this is we are real here today. Mm-hmm. We are the guests. And
panic ensues at that point, right?
Of course. But so is everybody sitting here, because I want everybody to think about, so what do you do when you have more bills than you have money? I think that God gives us this opportunity for growth to become creative. And this is why we hear often about many artists and creative people. They live a life of creativity, but they remain broke because it's more about the creativity and they never really make the transition about how do I take this creative product that I've created, Napoleon Hill? How do I take this creative product and turn it into money? And that's oftentimes disconnect. Go ahead, Galen.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of the things that I hear from a lot of people, and actually I heard it just this past week, is that there are a lot of books, there are a lot of principles that will talk about the importance of these exact same things. So you can go anywhere and hear the importance of having faith. You can hear about the importance of having confidence. You can hear about the importance of being persistent, right? But there are very few books or philosophies that will tell you how to have more faith, how to have more confidence. There are, and this is, I'm bringing this back to the conversation that we had before we went live. There are a lot of places that you can go to be part of a mastermind. You can pay, $5,000 all the way up to $100,000 to be part of a mastermind. But where do you go to learn how to run the mastermind, how the mastermind should be run, and therefore how you should assess whether or not it's right for you to be part of that mastermind? And that's what we are talking. That's what we've been talking about. That's what we're talking about now is how we're trying to develop a system of best practices where we can share best practices with those mastermind groups so that you can bring your group, you can bring your team, and you can learn how to be effective as a masterminder. So, and I'd love to get your thoughts about this idea that this book, this philosophy is the only place that many people have said that they show you how to do these things that everyone professes that you need to do, but they don't necessarily show you how. What are your thoughts about that? Is that founded?
Well, yes. And I again, I have to go back to my own life because you see, I did exactly what my parents told me to do, go to school and get a good education, and get a good corporate job as they were told to do. And that was the answer. I want to take a moment and just thank a lot of people who are our friends that are chiming in. Johnny Lloyd Wyman, a lot of people, even we want to thank all of you for participating in the conversation. And if you have some thoughts, put them in the chat and let us hear from you. But Galen, I think that what happens oftentimes, we don't know where to go to make the transition on how do I take this need that I have for more money. Because for many years, I couldn't understand why does Napoleon Hill start the business, the chapters off with money. And I don't want to talk about money. I want to talk about, oh, this is funny now. It's funny now. It was not funny then when I could not pay my bills. And I'm being honest, we're in denial. We wear the stilettos, we wear the clothes, we put all this money in this stuff. The house, the car, and can't make the monthly bills. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about me. That's where I was. I'm not there now. But what it did for me, it put me so deeply in debt. I had properties. People asked about construction. I bought, my husband, I bought a house and we bought a house across the street and we bought a house down the street. And I didn't really have the heart to put people out when they didn't pay. So I paid the mortgages for people to live free. And, they know their rights and they know the law and they know you cannot put them out. And so, but it wasn't until I began to read this book and allow this book to read me, Galen, going back to the question that you're asking us about, where do you go? I think the first place you go is inside of yourself and be brutally honest about your situation and where you are. There are a lot of professionals that want to start a business, but they're not willing to do the internal work. This is where a mastermind group becomes so very powerful, but you're not going to invest. I'm not going to call any names. We did talk before the show started about people are paying thousands of dollars to mastermind with people that they don't know. The people don't know what they're talking about, or they don't have your best interest in heart. Is that their fault or is it yours? I would suggest it's yours, because if you don't go inside of yourself in these principles and become aware and familiar with what it is you desire and how you're going to achieve that desire, You can do it without money, but it's not going to be a like kind. You know, in other words, if you want a like kind, you've got to give it a like kind. If you want money, come on, somebody, okay? You're going to have to invest some money. And it may not have to be a lot, but you need to be clear about what amount of money you want, Ann McNeil. And so I wanted to save $1,000 a year. Yes, I had a good corporate job, but I was so deeply in debt, I could not save $1,000 a year. Now, $1,000 a year saving was not a good answer, because what I realized later when I began to learn the principles is that the amount of money that I put on the form had to be related to a product or service I was going to sell. Sell. Sell is a good word. It used to be, you know, a dirty word. Ooh, sell. I don't want to sell. But we sell every single day, whether we know it or not. People may not be buying what you're selling, but I'm selling myself. Galen and Peter, we're all selling ourselves to you, but we're also encouraging you to buy. And what you're buying is you're buying a benefit and a value that we're offering to you to invest in yourself in this philosophy. And we do so many things for free. We come here every single week and we share with you this philosophy. But guess what? Many of you don't take advantage. You just listen and you don't do. Go ahead, Galen.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think an example of that, and tying this back to what I said earlier around how this book shows you how. It's not just saying the importance of, but this is how. One of the things that I really like about this is it talks about what's your relationship to money? What's your thoughts about money? Because if you've got a negative understanding and a negative relationship with money, how in the world are you going to attract this thing that you say that you want at the same time that you're talking bad about it, right? And it for me, this was the first place I ever went where it actually was in front of my face. What's my relationship? What's my cultural understanding and relationship with money? You know, what has my family said about money? What has the church said about money? And that's deep into my core. And could that be the reason why money is not being attracted into my life? And one of the things I really liked, and this came out in a group conversation I had this past week, is that money and success has to be attracted. It has to be wooed. It's not something that you can just grind and hustle and make it come into your life like our culture promotes a lot of times. But you don't get that, or at least I didn't get that from any place else until I understood this philosophy of wooing success into your life. Poverty doesn't have to be wooed. Poverty is bold.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I thought you said money and sex. Money and success.
Money, success. But poverty. See, now you got me choked up. Wait,
Galen. This is a masterclass. There is a correlation between all three: money, sex, and success. You have to woo them all. Come on, we're all adults here. This is a masterclass, and we three are having a conversation with all of you as we have a conversation with each other. Take what Galen is saying, and the same applies. So treat your money like you would boo. Woo. It is. And decide, can we go there? This is not sex transmutation, but it is imagination. So you can take what we're saying and use the figment of your own. I think Peter's waking up. So his smile just became broad.
I'm all in now. You got me here. You hooked me.
This is serious conversation. And so, we talk around things. But when people are hurting, and there are a lot of people hurting, and they're looking for a way, a voice in the dark to give them hope. Because that's where I was that night when I felt hopeless when I did the math, and I could not figure a way to save or make $1,000 over and above my job. And so let me just fast forward the journey. Let's talk about imagination. I use my imagination from using these principles, going back to Galen's question. And I said, how can I make more money? Maybe I get a part-time job. And I realized a part-time job, I had to pay for the privilege of working by the time I finished my full-time job, then went to a part-time job making minimum wage and had to get night care and food and all of the things that would take me to do that part-time job. It was not a good return on the investment of my energy. So eventually I ended up coming up with an idea to go into a network marketing business. And that is where I began to realize that if you grow the person will grow the business. So Galen, this is where the principles become so very valuable, because as we each grow our self-image and our self-confidence and our self-worth, and we talked about Napoleon Hill, do the research. I mean, Johnny Lloyd is on here, and a lot of people who listen to this know that Napoleon Hill had a lot of failed businesses. And this is why the book is so critical and so powerful, because he was able to use what did not work from not just hundreds of people that he interviewed, but from his own life experience. And we want to challenge each of you. What are you doing with your life experiences? I talk about journaling. That's why I wrote the book, My Daily Date with Myself, because I realized from my journaling that reflecting is so very important. Because what happened, when, how, with whom? What did not work? What did work? Where are you journaling those thoughts? So Galen, this is a part of the answer to the question. I'll go back, and you can go back to your point you were making about wooing, success, and those other S words.
Sex.
One of the things too that I want to bring into this conversation, and I'm thinking about you, Dr. Peter, is that we can be part of, and we are usually part of, a number of different groups, a number of different associations. And very often, and let's be honest, you could type in mastermind into any kind of search, and you can find dozens of opportunities to join a mastermind. But usually when people join a mastermind, they're thinking, this is going to be my opportunity to meet other people and tap into their expertise. If that's all that you're getting from a mastermind is meeting other people, then I'm going to suggest that you're not making a wise investment, because a mastermind is supposed to do more than just allow you to meet other people. What's the difference between what we're talking about, Dr. Peter, this entire philosophy, and you kind of introduced the entire system, and just this place of, I can meet other people. I get to meet someone who may have done this business before, but there's no structure around it.
So let's even go back a little bit further, Galen, to what's something that you had mentioned earlier. I want to talk about a couple of words that you mentioned, abundance versus scarcity, and empowerment. As a coach, I talk a lot about those two areas, abundance, empowerment. Why? As an African-American male, our communities have not always flourished from a place of empowerment or abundance, right? So now over time, what does that do to your psyche? What does that do to your mindset when you are always somewhat pushed down? Right? We aren't raised in that abundance mindset. So you'll hear this phrase a lot in our communities. How you doing, Galen? I'm out here hustling. I'm out here grinding, right? Because that's where we've come from. That's our mindset. In order to get to where we desire to get to, we have to hustle. We have to grind. We have to work those 2 jobs, 3 jobs, as Ann has already mentioned, in order to get forward. But all the while us doing that, we're not really getting ahead. Those of you who know people right now who have multiple jobs, they will never get ahead. Why is that? Because their mindset is not in the right place, as you and Anna mentioned, to attract that wealth, to attract that success, to attract that sex, right? So now, how do you shift from that scarcity to that abundance mindset where you are attracting it? How do you shift the narrative from powerless to powerful in order to embrace this mindset? Those of you who are watching, I'm asking you to reflect on this and even reflect on your circle as we start now going to address Galen's question about who around you has that mindset or doesn't, right? And most of us, friends and family, I'll say on family, oftentimes our families, remember the rich history, has not evolved to this mindset. So now we're surrounding ourselves, continuing to surround ourselves with individuals who are not on that abundance and powerful. They're still on the scarcity and powerless. So how are you going to get ahead if you're not shifting the narrative? This mastermind now that Galen is talking about allows you to say, hey, yeah, I want to surround myself. I want to network with people, not who are just wealthy, but have that mindset to attract, that mindset to stay in that place in order to attract abundance and in order to be more powerful. And so now as you reflect on this and all those people who are in your immediate circle, now the time is to ask yourself, what do I need to change right now?
Hey, and I'll tell you one of the things that, and Peter, I'm going to bring part of our private one-on-one conversation into this as well, because you and I had this conversation this past week. That it's one thing to be around smart, like-minded people, and that's really, really important, right? It's to your point. A lot of times, your family, out of love, will hold you down because they want to keep you safe. Right? That's their aspiration.
Guilty as charged.
And we, our culture is laden with trying to keep you safe, right? Because we understand the dangers of stepping out there and sticking your head up. And so that's what the family typically does. So it's important to be around people that are trying to live in this abundance mindset. I'm not talking about a get rich scheme type of thing, but an abundance mindset. It's another thing to make sure that that group they have the principles that's important for the group to be successful. And that's what we're talking about here. How do we share those best practices so that the groups will continue to nurture their individual members, so that the groups don't turn into another one of those? Again, put in a Google search. I dare anyone. I would love for anyone to put in a Google search right now on masterminds and just put in the chat the number of hits that you find just by putting that in. And I would dare say that 95% of them, they're not focused on the principles to help you to continue to be successful. They're probably focused on making sure that your check clears, but they're not necessarily focused on leveraging the principles that will continue to help you be successful as a member of that group. And that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I definitely want to bring Ann now into this conversation as we think about who that group is for you, how they're continuing to help build you up, how you're continuing to pour into it, and how you're continuing to get more out of it as well. And we have a great mastermind process here with the International Mastermind Association, and of course, a great annual meeting. I'd love for you to be able to share a little bit about that as we dive more into this topic.
Well, I'll merge the two. I think what you just shared about the shifting of your mind, then what? Once my mind is shifted, what do I do with it? And I suggest, going back to this imagination, use your imagination to come up with an idea. You see, both examples given by the author when he talked about Coca-Cola was an idea that the clerk purchased. The $1 million speech that was given was an idea to create a school for, really was for underprivileged kids is really what it was for. Well, when you shift your mindset and you come up with an idea and you discuss that idea with your mastermind group, which you need to create one. And once you create one, then you can come and connect with us. And if you're interested in how to start a mastermind group, you can get with Galen and myself and many other people who can help you create a mastermind group. But the International Mastermind Association is a place for groups to come on an annual basis. And we'll put up the information to talk about the annual meeting. So now for me, and I'll go back to my story about the $1,000. So it took me 10 years of meeting with my mastermind group, because I started giving the book away, came up with 10 women. We started meeting every single Saturday, 7 a.m. Yes, that's where this came from, this show. So we started meeting 7 a.m. every single Saturday, 52 weeks. No, everybody didn't make it, but whoever made it out of the 10, we at least always had 2, a minimum of 2, sometimes 10. But we each started masterminding the 6 steps, holding each other accountable, coming up with ideas and vetting the ideas with each other, whether or not it was good or what do you think, what can I do differently? And we all supported each other. At that point, when we started this, nobody had a business. We had ideas. And so for me, I took the idea of the need to have $1,000 and looked at what I was doing for a living, this property I was buying and renovating. And that led from the property renovating to the idea of why not learn how to build construction. And I went to a trade school while I'm working on my master's degree. My friends laughed at me. The mastermind group laughed at me. But then I went from that to desiring to start a business. Now, it's all an idea. Where do you go with the idea? And I'm trying to help somebody understand, how do you take these principles and live them every day?
Yeah.
It is not going to happen overnight. And so once this group started meeting, and we would meet and say, we said, listen, let's write our goals and get together once a year. And we started meeting once a year with these written goals in my home and somebody else's home, and rotating the home once a year. And then year after year, the group grew because our friends would say, what are you doing? Can you help me? I want to understand what you're doing. And we would invite people to come. And then we knew we needed to go to a hotel when I had 90 people in my home. Yes, for an annual meeting. And then we went from there to the hotel. And we have been at the Embassy Suites in Boca, I don't know how many years now. Doesn't matter. The point is that we have an annual meeting place we go to bring our life in writing. All 10 of those areas, we hold each other accountable. One of those areas is a business. And the business is where we make money. And many of you who are listening, oh, you want to, serve the Lord. I love that. Oh, you want to give. I love that. Oh, you want to be philanthropic. I love that. But where's the money going to come from? Silent pause for those of you who are on podcasts. We need to create businesses and desire to become a millionaire, not for the money, but for who and what you will become in the process. Think about this. We read this book. This is history. But history is being read, but history is also being made every day by people with imagination. And so, Brittany, if you would bring up the JPEG, we're going to talk about very briefly the annual meeting once a year at the Embassy Suites in Boca Raton. And it is going to be held on the 7th and the 8th. We want to encourage you, and I've set a new goal. Every single week, I need one of you to register. Now, I don't know who you are. I don't know where you are, but I've made a commitment, and our group has made a commitment that we believe so strongly in this. We want to encourage you that by faith, you're talking about, and again, we talked about the fact that we don't respect what we get for free. And my friend Les Brown always says, the people don't respect what they don't pay for, and the more they pay attention. And so for an investment of less than a couple of $100, the closer we get to the event, yes, the investment will go up. So we want to take away every excuse you have. Join us on January 7th and 8th in Boca Raton. And I see Misty and some of the other people, Doretha and others have been there before. We want to thank you and invite you to come back. And Misty, yes, this year your daughter will be coming. We have children that also are masterminding with us, and they have a phenomenal program that they're working on. And Peter, I know you didn't know I was going to say this, but I have to tip my hat. Your daughter gave us her annual report for her life and blew us all away. I don't know if you helped her with it. Did you see it, Peter? You're on mute. I think you're on mute, Peter.
I said, I have not seen it. She tries to hide stuff from me for sure, but I'll have to dive on into that.
Don't tell her, but all of we're right now, we're up to, I think, maybe about 25, 30 kids. And each week, one of the children share with their mastermind group every Sunday, 30 minutes. They share one a week. They share their annual report that they wrote for themselves. It starts with their mission, their vision, and all 10 areas of their life. Not only do they say, this is what my goal is, then they drill it down and they have a plan for how they're going to achieve that goal. And so, Peter, your daughter's life plan was phenomenal. So I'm sorry to tell you that she didn't share it with you yet, but this is my point. When the children can do this, and how old is your daughter, Peter?
She's 12.
12. And Misty's on here, and I think her daughter's 9. I have to say this, Misty. Misty's daughter last year set a goal go back to Peter, Galen, what we talked about before. One of the ways that we make a mistake in this masterminding philosophy and principle, we want to mastermind, but we don't want to use it to make money. So the children realize that they need a product or service. That's what the book says. Misty's daughter, I'm going to give a shout out to her. Last year, she set a goal to make $1,000. She had to come up with a product. And so she came up with a product of her artwork. And she reported in less than a year, not only did she make $1,000, she made $2,000 from the sales of her product. I think I said she was how old? She was 9 then, she might be 10 now. What's our excuse? Can you imagine where these children will be when they get to be our age? Yeah. And I know I don't think I was the host today, but Galen out.
No. I mean, this is the conversation, because one of the things that keeps coming into my mind is that it's about the process. It's about the process. Any of us can join a mastermind group, but if they're not following the process, then you're not getting from it what you should and could be getting from it. And so, our purpose for being is, introducing this process to individuals, but how can we help groups leverage this process so that their mastermind members can get the benefit? And that's what this is about. That's what the annual meeting is about. That's what these conversations are about. That's why I get up at 5 o'clock twice a week to talk to you guys, so that I can understand and make sure that my businesses are being run by these principles. I think I got time for one quick story. I've been doing this coaching thing for a little bit, and I'm now getting to the point where I'm starting to build out my systems, build out my organization, add people to my organization. And I had someone who's on my team now say, Galen, what is this a cult? Is this a pyramid scheme? Why is everyone so passionate about making sure that everyone is involved in this thing? And it's not a cult. It's not a pyramid scheme. But when you find something that works, and I'm going to use something I heard from Wyman Winbush, because he's so active in the chat this morning. He tells a story about If you have two pianos in the same room, and you strike a C chord on one piano, the C chord on the other piano will start to vibrate
Wow.
because it recognizes what's going on. And
Mhm.
Wyman so beautifully said that the same is true about people. We recognize truth.
Yeah.
We vibrate when we hear truth, even though we might not be able to explain it or articulate it, or we might not even know all the words that were used. But when it's truth, we kind of vibrate. And that's what people are attracted to. That's what we're trying to make sure that all of these quote unquote mastermind groups are leveraging. We want them to leverage the truth about how people can achieve success, and not just calling themselves a group because it's a way to make money.
Galen, I want to jump in there really quick because I think this is a great opportunity. As Ann had talked about, we're encouraging our kids to do this type of stuff, to set these goals for the year. But now you as an adult who are watching, what has been your mission and your vision and your goals, not just financially, but as Ann has been saying, civic, family, nonprofit or organizational, even so much as, we're writing our obituaries to identify what we would like to accomplish between now and when we're finished. So who is helping to hold you accountable? Who is that circle that, don't say that I'm an adult, I'm my own circle, I can do. No, it's not about that. It's now about, as Galen was even mentioning, with these piano chords, these piano notes, who is reverberating as you are providing your magic or your future. And you're talking about it. And if you don't have anybody, now is the time to dive on in, go deeper now in Napoleon Hill's text, and even with the International Mastermind Association here, because we are offering this up to say, hey, we have people. We have people. It's good stuff, Galen.
Well, hey, we could talk for the next 3 days on this particular topic. As a matter of fact, we've kind of branched out from just imagination to cover the entire philosophy because it all integrates so nicely. But I would love to just kind of circle back to everyone and get any final thoughts that you might have about this conversation. And then how can people get a hold of you if they want to get involved with you specifically?
Yeah.
Let's start with you, Dr. Peter.
Yeah, good stuff, Galen. My name is Dr. Peter A. James. I am the high performance coach, helping you to shift your mindset. You can find me on any social media platform at shiftyourmindset.com. That's, at Dr. Peter A. James. That's at DrPeterAJames, and also my website, shiftyourmindset.com. I want to go back to something I said earlier, that abundance mindset that we often are not raised on, that powerfulness. I'm not talking about powerful from politicians or CEOs, because we like to give them the power. But what's your power? How can you take back your power in order to move forward? And there's no text like the Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich to be able to help you identify your power. Now that you can imagine your power, who are you going to begin to surround yourself with as you move forward? Who's going to be like-minded? Who's going to help hold you accountable as you move forward as well, Galen? Galen, thankfully, man, that you're one of my guys for that. So good stuff.
Well, fantastic. Ms. Ann, you are the master builder. You're the mastermind behind all of this. What are some of the things that you got from this conversation, and how can people get a hold of you if they want to get more of what we get on a weekly basis?
Well, I really want to go back to something that Napoleon Hill shared in the imagination chapter and just share with the group, because when he talks about the fact that these principles, and they're all the principles, and going back to what you just shared, we did bring in many of the other principles as a part of this conversation. But he tells us that the principles, they basically open a way for for all of us to begin to better understand the power of your imagination. But once you assimilate and begin to understand how this philosophy works, if this is your first, second, or third time reading the book, right? And then as you continue to reread, and this is what we talked about in the pre-show conversation, as you continue to reread and you begin to go deeper in your own imagination and you begin to try things, sometimes they'll work, sometimes they don't, but your imagination is always active. It's always moving. It's always giving you inspirations, and you just keep going. You just keep going. You say, oh yeah, I'll write that down later. And then 2 minutes later, you can't remember what the thought was, right? Well, it's all an idea that's powered by your imagination, that's powered by your actions. And as Dr. Peter James said, it begins to shift your mindset to increase your self-confidence to know it's possible. So my name is Ann McNeil, and yes, I am the Master Wealth Builder, helping you to build a stronger and better life and business. And I use these philosophies in my 5 businesses as the owner of the MCO Construction and Services Construction Company after 40 plus years of being in this business, as the first Black female contractor, as the owner of MCO Consulting, a consulting company that focuses on the Fortune 1000 in my industry, helping them to provide outreach, monitoring, and compliance services in the construction industry, as the owner of Constructive Speaking, where I speak to share with keynotes, workshops, and seminars to add greater value to organizations and the individuals in that organization and association, but also as the founder of the National Association of Black Women in Construction. From an idea, every single thing I'm mentioning was an idea that I wrote down and then I acted on with an accountability group of individuals called a MasterMind group. And then finally, the International Mastermind Association, which was an idea to just get people together once a year. And that idea now has grown into what we now know as the International Masterminders Association, where we are creating a beta test. And if you're interested, continue to listen in. We're creating a beta test of mastermind groups. So if you are in a mastermind group and you want to participate with us as we create this beta test for the place of accountability, you can connect with us by sharing your interest. We'll share with you how you can do that. You can send an email to Ann McNeil at annmcneil.com and let us know you are interested. Send an email to Ann McNeil at annmcneil.com and let us know you're interested in being a part of the beta test. Now, this beta test is not for individuals, it's for groups. If you have a group or you started a group or you've been in a group, and some groups have been around 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and they're looking for a place of accountability, because what's happening after so many years of just getting to know each other, you're just flatlining, about to die as a group. And you're really looking for a place of accountability to revive that group, because the speed of the leader is the speed of the group. And then finally, we want to encourage all of you, if you are interested in learning as a part of how to mastermind and how to journal your thoughts and your imagination, you can connect with me through my book. Yes, my Daily Date with Myself book, which would give you some systems and processes of how do you take your idea and drill it down as you journal, but have a place of accountability for your thoughts. That's what I'm learning. And so I couldn't find a place for journaling my thoughts in different categories, so I created one. And so again, my name is Ann McNeil, and I am the Master Builder, helping you to build a stronger and better life and business with this philosophy. Thank you, Galen.
Well, absolutely. Well, this has been, as promised. I hope you feel like we've delivered against the promise that this was an amazing conversation. We have this conversation every Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern, where we discuss one element of Napoleon Hill's philosophy around thinking or rich, 13, the 13 principles. And for me, this has been a great conversation about the power of the principles. It's not about doing specific things or specific tactics. It's about understanding and leveraging the principles, not just learning the principles, but using the principles. You can get a hold of me by going to Galen at killglobalcoaching.com. I'm a certified executive coach. I'm also the host of a new emerging podcast called Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership, where we just get friends together. We talk about the principles that are important to be an effective leader. At Kill Global Coaching, we help leaders make permanent success into their work and life. And this podcast is just our way of connecting with you, sharing insights from people that are actually doing what you're trying to do, or they have been where you're trying to go. I double dog dare you to check us out on any platform. Just type in Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership and give us one shot. This has been a great conversation. Now, I want to leave you with a couple of quotes because these quotes came to mind, and I just happened to have them accumulated in my 2017 book that I wrote, Impact Your Power to Make a Lasting Difference. The first one is from an educator, a longtime educator by the name of Rose Chavis. And she said, stop doing the things you've always done that are keeping you from success. So those things that you've always done because you've always done them, but they're not working, stop doing them. And then the last one I want to leave you with is a quote from none other than Miss Oprah Winfrey. Miss Oprah Winfrey said that people make life complicated because they feel like they have to. She's just decided to stop doing that. So when are you going to stop doing those things that make your life complicated and that haven't been working because you feel like that's what you're supposed to do? This process, this book, not only tells you what you need to do, it also shares with you how to do them, how to incorporate them into your life. And we'd love for you to join us every week as we show you how to incorporate this into your life, not only as an individual, but as a group. So with that, thank you for joining us. Until next week, take care.